Right, okay, I recorded this earlier. Unfortunately I had the sound muted, so I'm dubbing the audio back on. Now, I actually did two scenarios. I loaded flight gear and then I followed a specific path which was directly overhead of the airport. Now this is a debugging video, by the way. This is nothing. This is not for entertainment. This is to try to find out what the problem was with flight gear. Now it does appear from reading the devil list that the flight gear version 3 is broken. Well, I'm not surprised actually, because just about every version I've used in the last 5 years has been broken in some way or another. It's either the autopilot doesn't work, or it's either something else is not working. But this time it's more serious, because the actual simulator itself, version 3 of flight gear for Windows, no matter what you're in, whether you're flying around in a camera or you're flying around in a plane or you're driving a vehicle, it doesn't seem to make any difference. It doesn't matter, because basically the simulator crashes. The first time and several times I run flight gear to try to find out what was going on. The first time I was using the AI Allpud or Allpud vehicle, the car which AJ developed, and then later on I was using another AI of the Jeep, which I was, and then I was driving that actual Jeep around as well, because I was trying to remap the scenery, the roads. I was having to remap the roads for the AI, because the AI vehicle which I had, Jello or Allpud, was actually driving across country, so that was kind of fun. But anyway, then obviously I was doing some approaches to the signposts I'd put up, and the flight gear kept crashing. So I thought, well, what's wrong with this? I can't progress. I can't seem to make any headway. So I'm going to just focus on trying to find out what the problem is, instead of trying to actually do any real work on any of my stuff, because there's no point if the sim is not working properly. Anyway, I did two approaches to this runway. The first time I did it with the TERRA SYNC scenery turned on. This time, this is a recording I just did a little while ago, with the TERRA SYNC turned off. So the actual TERRA SYNC scenery on this particular recording is actually turned off. Now, what happened was, I thought, well, I'm going to stick exactly to the same scenario. I approached this runway with a camera. I'm not actually in a plane, and I set the heading so that it would basically follow this runway in a straight line out to sea, over San Francisco Bay to KSFO. And the idea was that if I repeat the steps exactly with two different situations, one with TERRA SYNC on and one with TERRA SYNC off, I could eliminate whatever is causing a problem. Because I know that certain buildings are set to appear at a certain distance, you know. So when you say I think it's 3,000 meters or something, when you're within 3,000 meters of a building, it will start to materialize. It will start to load, and you'll see it. Well, that's what I thought. I thought that might be the problem. Originally I was having problems with the Berlin Reichstag building, which I was trying to load, and that kept crashing, and now that seems to be working alright now. But I'm actually using an older Berlin Reichstag building which I had on my hard drive from before, and I disabled, or rather deleted, the TERRA SYNC version, which I ended up loading two of them, so that might have been causing a problem. Anyway, I locked my camera onto a little AI invisible beacon, which is actually above San Francisco Airport. I locked the camera onto that beacon so that while the MIBS is actually following the runway, the camera is actually following, or rather locked on to this beacon above San Francisco Airport. Now, the idea was that I would have a different view angle. It would be more visually pleasing to be watching rather than looking out to sea, because obviously it's a bit boring watching a video that's about 37 minutes long, and if there's nothing much to look at. So anyway, I hooked the camera onto the San Francisco Airport, and then I followed a track heading, I think it's 26 on the true heading, and set the simulator going. And now, unfortunately, I was actually reading out some of the numbers when I was actually recording this, but because I'm looking at this in a smaller screen now, I can't actually see the numbers, so you're going to have to look yourself. And but I noticed from memory, I'm going by now again, there was no noticeable errors in the terminal window at all at the initial startup. I basically got rid of all the bad scenery that was causing me loading errors, so I wasn't really seeing any significant errors in that window until I got out to sea over San Francisco Bay, and then the train wanted to load. That's when I noticed things happening. The flight gear froze up for me. Well, you'll see that in a while. It just freezes up completely for a minute or two. CPU on one of the 6 cores, because I've got 6 cores, and the average CPU is around 50%, around 53, 57%. It just jumps around about there. But up until that point, all the cores were pretty even. You know, the multi-threading seemed to be working quite well. There was not a great deal of difference between the cores, a slight amount, but not too much. But and then at one point, when I got to where the train was loading, I think it was core number 3, or it might have been core number 4, suddenly shot right to the top. It was overloaded, flat out, 100%, and the other 5 cores were idling around 40%. And that's when things started to go wrong, and this, as I say, is with TERRA SYNC turned off. So I'm actually getting close to that point now, where, and I bring up the terminal window, and if you zoom in, you may be able to actually see that it was trying to load this train. I believe that might be Vivian's model. I'm not sure, but I know Vivian's been very good with the ground vehicle stuff. He's very good with that sort of thing, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I know I'm waffling a lot, but I've got to basically fill in about 37 minutes while this recording goes through. Now, that's where I bring up the window about how much CPU has been used and the memory, and the memory is about 3.1 gig by that, and how much is being used at the moment. And I think it was the second core. Actually, it's not numbered 0 to 5 actually, because it's core 0, core 1, core 2, up to core 5. So I think it was core number 1 actually that seems to be a little bit higher than the rest. But anyway, at some points I leave the room and go for a cup of coffee because it starts to get a bit boring. So yeah, actually it's not so bad at that point there. But the memory, physical memory usage is fairly high. But I'm actually using a 4 gigabyte. Sorry, I'm using a 4 gigabyte memory SDDR3 in the machine. But Windows XP Series Pack 3 only recognises, I think, the first 3 gigabytes, so it can only really use about 3 gig. And the rest of it is supposed to be paged out. Into the swap file, paging file. But the problem is, if you've got a memory leak in the software, what happens is the stuff gets stuck in memory, and the machine can't dump it out. It can't seem to deal with it. It kind of gets unlinked, and The computer itself is very stable. I mean, I've just updated my BIOS actually yesterday in the hope that that would fix it, because I was using the original BIOS I was using was actually came with the machine and the motherboard, which is a decent motherboard actually. I'll just let you know about that, because it might be significant, because there might be other people who have similar problems, and obviously hardware's got a lot to do with it. The motherboard I'm actually using is AMD 760G K15. I'm just going to load that up. Now, the motherboard is actually an M5A7AL-M/USB 3. It's a very new motherboard, so it shouldn't be suffering these types of problems. The actual it's actually using an AM3 CPU support. Sorry, it's actually support ready for AM3 CPU. It's using a 6-core CPU, as I said earlier. ASUS EPU system level energy saving, blah blah blah, anti-surge. It's got a crash-proof BIOS in it. Well, my actual computer hasn't crashed as such. It's just programs on it that occasionally do. Obviously, because of memory leaks or other problems with the software, or sometimes they conflict with something else. But anyway, at this point at the recording, I was flying around the airport, Kosovo, and I actually got way out to sea, and I was actually at this point, I didn't realise, but I was getting within range of this train, and when this train loaded into the terminal, I noticed it was in the terminal. I actually bring the terminal window up in a while. That's when everything froze up on me in flight gear, not the computer, because obviously I wouldn't be able to record it if the machine had frozen up. But then everything started to get a little bit raggy, frayed around the edges. You know, nothing was. I was clicking on buttons and nothing was happening. And sometimes it's a bad idea, because that gets queued up in the buffers, and then everything all that happens at once when it releases, then that can cause a crash. So I just left it for a while, and you should see that in a while. As I say, I'm happy to dub this audio on top, because when I recorded earlier, even though I was talking through it, unfortunately I'd the sound muted. So there was no commentary, but the whole point of this video was to give a dialogue on everything that I've been doing, because I know the flight gear community are busy trying to fix bugs, but sometimes implementing new features in an endless chain before you've solved previous bugs, it's a bit like building your house on a swamp. There's not much point in building your house in a swamp if the thing's going to sink into the swamp, is there? You need to sort your foundations out first and get rid of any bugs or any issues that are there before you start building new things on top, because it's just bad practice. I mean, I'm sure if my dad had built the bungalow where we lived when I was a child on a swamp, I wouldn't be here today. I'm probably going to be sucked up during the night sometime. So I mean, software is a bit like that. If you're building on top of code which is not reliable, or the coding's got some glitches with it, then that all that means is you've got to go and rewrite your code again later on. So I mean, it kind of defeats the object in the first place. It's best to fix the problem, and then you're working on a solid coding base, and then you know exactly where you are when you're developing your own, writing your own software. You actually write it to suit rather than trying to adapt it later on. And so I know you know all this stuff, but I'm just filling 37 minutes. Right, okay. I was trying to follow a flight plan, but obviously the camera doesn't do that very well. But the main reason I bought the flight the waypoint thing up was I wanted to see how far out I was to get an idea how many miles away from Case of O. I think I was about 18 nautical miles or something like that. But I was trying to get a rough idea so that I could judge it when this crash was happening. So anyway, at this point I was turning back towards Case of O, and the waypoint thing was not working, so I had to clear it. I had to clear the waypoint and then set a manual heading back to Case of O, which I think I'm doing there now. Yeah, that's where I was clearing it, and I set a new heading back because I'm not exactly debugging anything when I'm out at sea, because there's no scenery, anything there. And I do think though that it's got something to do with the scenery. One of the models, it could be the train, because I actually flew Concorde from Honolulu International Airport, and I got all the way back to San Francisco before the crash happened. So it has definitely something to do with the scenery. If it's a train near Case of O, then maybe that should be temporarily disabled just for debugging reasons, to see if that's the cause. That would be useful, because at this end, from my perspective, from flight gear here, I can't do that. I can't, there's no option available that I can see where I can disable the train. So I think that would be a good idea to test whether or not that's the cause of the crashes at Case of O. I'm not attacking anybody's models. I'm not trying to get at anybody. I mean, I don't know if it was Vivian or someone else that developed the train, but I'm not saying the train is at fault. But there's a bug in flight gear, clearly, and how it handles the train, that is the issue. If the bug is being exposed by the train, then obviously we need to eliminate the train temporarily and find the bug in flight gear, fix the bug, and then the train could come back again. But on the other hand, there might be a bug with the train, but we don't know that, do we? At least I can't see that from this end. All I'm seeing is what is in the terminal window, and enabling debugging mode in the terminal window is not a good idea, because you get flooded with information and you tend to miss what you're looking for. You know, all I want to see is basic errors or loading errors. If you see the loading errors, then you've got an idea of what could be causing the problem, and that can be examined more deeply. But at this point, yeah, because it was, I'm flying back towards Case of O now, and I think you'll be able to see in there. There's all the entries to do with the train. Right, and this is when I was actually rotating around Case of O. And we're actually about halfway through the video. I can't see what was on the screen just then because I'm looking at it in a small window. I don't know if it's, oh, there's a large switch to full screen. Ah, that's the one I want. Well, let me do it. I'm trying to. Right, this might work. I can't get the damn thing in full screen because I'm trying to comment and it won't let me have a look at this in full screen, and this might be the one. Right, okay. Right, I'm just going to pause this a moment. I'll see if I can get this in a bigger screen, and then I'm going to continue. Hang on. Oh, I can't. Actually, it won't let me. I'm actually, because I'm dubbing the audio on the video. It's and I set it to record dubbing directly to the end of the video, so it's not going to let me. Very difficult for me to see what I'm actually commenting on. I'll just use my zoom button now and then, and maybe I can see what I'm actually seeing, because my memory's not very good, but I think it's somewhere around here actually when it freezes up on the train. And I need some more coffee. Talking all this is doing my throat in. Right, okay, it's somewhere, aha, this is where it starts to get jittery, look. It's starting to get jittery, and I'm actually over the ocean, and it might be near the bridge. I think I'm actually near the bridge, San Francisco Bridge. Well, not the Golden Gate Bridge, the other one, but I forget the name of it, but there's another bridge further down. And yeah, it does look like the railroad, yeah. As soon as the railroad is being loaded, what I'm seeing here is the PATZ1A not, and then I'm getting not railroad, not railroad. Now that could be the problem, because the last time I was doing an approach to K-Savo to do my landing, it crashed just as I was coming in to K-Savo, and obviously the railroad does look like it could be the cause. And in a moment you'll see I bring up the actual CPU usage, and I think it's core number 1 or core number 2 just flatlines completely 100%. I mean, I don't mean flatline as in 0, I mean flat out at 100%, and the other cores are around 50, around about. So it does look like the bug could be something related between flight gear, the scenery, and the railroad or something. But you'll see that in a minute. I was trying to get the weather turned off, and it kept coming back on for some reason as well. I've had issues with the weather before with the METAR. I disabled it a few times and it's come back on again. But they've changed alarmingly. A lot of the weather scenario stuff has changed. It's all related to the new 3D clouds and everything. And obviously, whenever you change things, you introduce new potential bugs and things like that, and it just complicates everything. So when you're trying to find a problem, it makes it harder, because there's new features that have been put in that are not being fully tested, and so that's the reason why most of us don't know what's going on. We don't know what the problem is, because there's too many things to deal with all at once. So you basically got to disable them one at a time, and you got to turn off things and see what effects these things have, and turn one thing back on at a time. And I was trying to get rid of the fog, basically, because it's difficult to navigate with a camera when I've got no instrumentation. I've got no instrumentation in the camera at all, because it's just for taking video, really. Because I'm not actually in a plane, so I'm relying on what I'm seeing in the terminal windows and little boxes and things like that. So yeah, I think this is pretty much about where things started to freeze up on me, and the whole thing just locked me out for quite a while. But it wasn't the scenery that was causing the problem, because I turned it off. I actually disabled it. I disabled the weather, sorry. Yeah, it just froze up there, but and yeah, the railroad. Realistic weather not implemented with this tile type. Starting hard-coded terrain pre-sampling. And I've got errors, problems here. It says, it doesn't actually say warning or anything, but it says not PS. It says not railroad, not PA, rest, not railroad. I don't understand why it's saying that. Maybe it's telling me that it's not moving or something. But everything was frozen up here. As you can see, nothing's moving. I had my throttle. I left my throttle alone. I didn't touch it. It was just, I left it at the same slow crawl. Yeah, this is it, where the CPU 2 is it CPU core number 1, actually, because they're marked 0 to 5. Core number 1 was 100%, and the other cores were down around 50 or so, and all I was getting was railroad stuff. Yeah, it was still frozen on me. It was like this for something like 5 minutes, maybe 4. It starts moving again, and then flight gear crashes. And you'll notice when I bring up all the boxes to do with how much memory is being used, there was still some memory available. There was something like 1 gig of memory available, but it wasn't being utilized. So I don't really know exactly what is going on here. But you can always skip forward if you're getting a bit bored. I would suggest if you do want to skip forward, you skip forward, what, a minute or two, because this doesn't last long, this freeze. But then you might miss something you need to see on the memory monitoring I've got up and all that. You might need to zoom in and look at some of that. I hope you can see it. I'm trying my best not to downgrade the resolution. I'm trying to keep the resolution up. Yeah, CPU core number 0 is pretty flatline, pretty down. Yeah, there's some page fault stuff there. Page fault delta 30,000. Page read delta 0. Paging file write delta 96. Context switch delta 41,885. IO read delta 8,8998. Blah blah blah. Available memory, physical memory, is 1,291,176 gigabyte. System cache 845,700. Total physical memory being used, I think, is 3.668. So I mean, you can see from these readings, which I record, I zoomed in so you could see what's going on. The actual computer it's not the problem with the computer, it's something in the simulator, something in there that is a problem, and the sim is still frozen. I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit, but I just hope that we can get this sorted out, because it's been a long problem for me with all the different Windows releases coming out, and they've all had problems. I don't think there's one recent Windows release that's been worth keeping. I've actually had to customize a batch file to load the 5 different flight gear versions, so I can load one at a time, and because each version's got assets that are functioning, and other versions have got issues. I mean, they've all got issues, but some of them have got issues that are less annoying in certain situations. I think it was Flight Gear 2.1 which had a big problem with the with Concorde, with the autopilot and pitch hold and all that, and the vertical speed and all that, and it would nosedive on me. Whereas this current new version of 3.0, actually the flight gear, the actual Concorde will fly. You can actually approach an airport and use the ILS and everything, but as soon as you get near the airport, that's when the sim crashes, so that's useless as well. So I mean, at least the autopilot's working in the new version, which is something, but it's not a lot of good if you can't land. But I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you do a manual approach or what, it still crashes. And yeah, I think I'll zoom in again in a minute or two on terminal window, because you can't really see it, can't really make it out in a small box. But as you can see from the clouds in the background, everything's completely stopped still. I actually nipped out of the room around about here to go and make a cup of coffee. So, and when I came back, I found out it was unfrozen. I think it's about now actually. If you look at that, you can notice that core number 1 is no longer 100%. So I think it's moving again. But I was stationary because I actually knocked my throttle down to 0, because I thought, well, it's frozen, right, and the last thing I need is for it to suddenly make jerky movements in a really fast moment as soon as it comes out of freeze mode, because it could crash it again. So I thought, well, I'll kill the throttle and come back after I've made the coffee, and then see if I can make out any more errors in the terminal window. And as soon as I realised it was no longer frozen, I throttled up again, not too much, just a bit, and started to head back towards KSO, San Francisco Airport, and then it crashed, the sim crashed. So I would look at the train first, check that out, see if it's that, because I couldn't see any other scenery, anything else being loaded other than the train. In the terminal box there was nothing there, the railroad rather. I'd turned off the realistic weather, and there was the hard coded terrain stuff. I was actually using the zoom at this point. I wasn't actually flying, I was just zooming in to the airport. I think I was anyway. Hard to keep track sometimes when you're going back over something you did just a while ago and you made that many previous attempts, and yeah, things get a bit fuzzy. But I know one thing for sure. I cannot fly around or approach cases for very long without the sim crashing on me. So there's definitely a problem there. I can fly over a lot of other scenery out in the middle of the nowhere, and yeah, this is me zooming in. Right, I'll zoom back out in a minute. There you go. Zooming back out. There, that's where it crashed on me. That's it. So, end of commentary.